Joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show from Sports Illustrated, his MMQB is a great must-read every single week. Our friend Albert Breer on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. How you doing, Albert?
I'm good. What was that about being a Twitter troll? I caught the very end.
I don't know. That was so long ago, like 3 minutes ago. So let's just jump right into it. I just mentioned how Lamar Jackson is one big, huge shrug emoji. We have no frame of reference from any previous quarterbacks with his skill set, with his resume so young right now. And I understand there have been first contract Super Bowl winning quarterbacks before, but not meaning as much maybe running, passing as Lamar does for his franchise right now. So what gives, right? Because Mahomes even might be you could compare him to Mahomes, but Mahomes won a Super Bowl and Mahomes didn't say, talk to my family to deal with me. I have no idea how to call what this is all about. Do you?
Yeah, I don't think very many people do, Rich, and I think that's really intentional. This is a very different negotiation, and I think if you talk to Ravens people who are involved in this, what you'd find is the circle is very, very small, and this is being treated very delicately. And the main reason why is, like you said, there's no agent shepherding the process, and generally, if you get to a conventional negotiation with a player, there's a process of feeling out, and feelings might get hurt. Like one side comes in too high, the other side comes in too low, and, there might be a period of a few weeks where things aren't great. There may be some stuff that gets out publicly. None of that's going to happen here. And if it does, it's a really bad sign. The Ravens have I think their understanding of their player is really, really good. And, the way that they've approached this is trust is the most important thing to Lamar. And so we're going to let him drive the process. We're not going to treat this like a normal negotiation. And, we're going to work together to find a solution here. Now, I don't know what Lamar wants. I don't know if he's pushing for a Deshaun Watson type of fully guaranteed deal. But the reason why there's so much, I'd say, uncertainty out there and why this all seems so vague is because I think everybody involved intends it to be. And, they want to keep this process pretty private. So it wouldn't surprise me whenever this gets done if it absolutely comes out of nowhere.
So at least we know they're talking now for sure. Right. And at least we know he doesn't agree that with the notion, and I kind of bought into it because Steve Bisciotti would know, of him saying that he thinks Lamar hasn't signed yet because he feels he's not worthy and wants to win a Super Bowl first. But he basically said, no, I feel I'm worthy. So what? But he's not using Watson's contract as a frame of reference at all, he said, because he's his own man.
Yeah.
Where does this go? I mean, what's your best guess from what you might know?
My best guess is that there's a real effort to get something done before training camp. Because I think up until now, I don't know that there's really been like this great sense of urgency. Because once he played last year, once he actually started the season last year, I think you start looking towards the year after, and then, where's the risk for the player? The risk for the player really starts in training camp, right? When he's going out there and he's in drills that are being run faster, even if he's not a quarterback taking on contact, that's when the real risk sort of begins. And so, I think once they decided that they were going to play out his fourth year, which, by the way, remember, like his draft classmate, Josh Allen, got his contract last year. I think this really sort of became, it's up to Lamar on when, we want to do this during this offseason. And I would say this, if this was intentional, if waiting was intentional by Lamar, it's a really good business decision. Look at how many quarterbacks were making 40 before this year, before this offseason, and look how many are making over 40 now. That number, Rich, has gone from 3 to 7. Matthew Stafford's in that club now. Derek Carr's in that club now. Deshaun Watson's in that club now. I think we've seen across the board. This goes for receivers too, pass rushers. Waiting has, those guys who are still out there, your DK Metcalfs, your Terry McLaurin's at receiver, and obviously your Lamar Jackson's, your Kyler Murray's at quarterback. Those guys are in a really good position to ask for more now because the market has almost completely changed at those positions over the last 6 months.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Matt Rule's comments on Sam Darnold yesterday certainly caught our ear, or a couple days ago, saying that Sam's the quarterback if they had a game today, but admitted is one way to put it, allowed that there's an upgrade at every position that any coach or team would endeavor if necessary, and he included the quarterback position. And we had a little bit of a role play here where I had Chris Brockman play Andy Reid and TJ play Mike McCarthy, and I asked them the question if they needed an upgrade at their quarterback or would endeavor that, and I think you get my point. So what is going on with Darnold, and is Baker Mayfield on their radar screen still here in mid-June? Yeah,
he is, and I would tell you that if there was a good deal out there for Baker Mayfield for the Panthers, he might already be a Panther. I think if they were in a position where they only had to pay him $4 or $5 million, then I think there's a decent chance that the Baker Mayfield would be in Carolina now, and Cleveland would have a draft pick for him. On the flip side, Cleveland's been willing to take on a fair amount of Baker's salary, like $9-10 million. So, for people out there that think that Cleveland's holding on to Baker is Deshaun insurance, they wouldn't be offering to take on, a pretty significant portion of the guy's salary if they were looking to hold him until there's more clarity in the Deshaun Watson case. So, do I think there's a solution to be found here where the Panthers could go get Baker Mayfield and throw him into a competition with Sam Darnold and Matt Corral? I certainly think that solution is out there. I just think for the Panthers to do it, I think it's going to have to be a bargain, and, by the way, I think that the similar type of thing might apply to the Seahawks, depending on where they're at coming out of their off-season program with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. I tend to think, reading the tea leaves is probably not great news that Drew Lock hasn't passed Geno Smith, because I think we know what Geno Smith is now, and that Drew Lock isn't, clearly taking the first snap in training camp. So I think that's another one to watch. And, obviously now with some more uncertainty in the Deshaun situation, you do wonder if Cleveland maybe regroups after the off-season program and weighs the pluses and minuses to maybe trying to get Baker back in the fold. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but, it would seem to me that, if they're now forecasting maybe a season-long suspension for Watson, it might be something worth exploring. So
the reason why Carolina didn't agree to the discounted Baker Mayfield rate is because why? Because they're half of Mayfield getting it at half of the fifth-year option price is still too steep because they already have a quarterback on the fifth-year option price in Darnold. Is that it?
I think that there's that element of it. I don't know how close they were on draft pick compensation or anything like that.
Right.
But, I do think that there's, if we felt if you feel like you're getting a deal, then go ahead and do the deal. You know what I mean? And it's worth taking the extra swing. I also think there was value for Carolina, though, in getting a full off-season program, with a look at Sam Darnold and Ben McAdoo's offense, because McAdoo's articulated to people in that building that he thinks he can work with Sam, and then also getting a clear look at Matt Corral, who, has some off-field questions and everything else, but is talented, and maybe should have gone a little higher than he went there in the third round. And so, I think for both Carolina and Seattle, there was an element of wanting to get a good long look at the guys that are already in your building. And both teams were able to do that over the last 9 weeks. And lo and behold, here we are. And, we're in the back half of June now. And Baker Mayfield's still out there, and Jimmy Garoppolo's still out there. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes over the next few weeks, because now where teams are, Rich, is with the off-season program done, every team has a chance to sort of reassess based on the 9 weeks of data that the off-season program gave them. And certainly that includes, the amount of information that both those teams were able to gather on their quarterbacks over the last 9 weeks.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. So where does everything stand with Deshaun Watson right now, best you can tell, Albert?
Yeah, I think, the league, my feeling's been that July's sort of been the target all along. And, because, and I think you and I have talked about this before, there's the pretrial discovery deadline at the end of this month that the league would feel, and the investigators too, Sue Robinson, the former U.S. District Court judge who's running the investigation, is going to give the initial finding. I think they'd feel a little bit more comfortable once they get past that pretrial discovery deadline because, it's not going to be complete. I don't think it's ever going to be complete, this year because it looks like the lawsuits are going to carry into 2023. But at least then you feel comfortable that you have, I would say, a good percentage of the information that's going to come out. So I felt all along they'd let that deadline pass, and then at some point in July we get a decision. I think the question now becomes, what's happened over the last week and a half, does that make you skittish enough where you're like, oh, God, what else is going to happen? Is something really significant going to happen in August or September? That's why my feeling is they're still going to, whatever the punishment is, the sanctions are, they're probably going to leave things pretty open-ended in saying the commissioner reserves the right to the commissioner reserves the right to alter the punishment in some way if new information becomes available. I still don't think that they want to use the commissioner's exempt list, but it remains a lever out there that Roger could pull if he really does feel uncomfortable and he wants to put Deshaun on paid leave. And then I think certainly the idea of giving him a full year suspension, I think this is something that's probably been discussed in the league office by now. The NFL could then couch it as, well, we sat Deshaun Deshaun had a de facto year off last year, and now, we're going to suspend him for a year. So, you add up the time away from the game, and it's equivalent to what MLB did to Trevor Bauer.
Well, it's not just, and it's interesting you mentioned the Trevor Bauer name there, but it's not just the court of public opinion. It's the extra and soon to be more civil cases coming. It's not just that also. It's also Deshaun Watson's inability to explain himself in a coherent manner or a convincing manner in the court of public opinion. It just keeps mounting. And his also desire, as he says, to clear his name and how long that will take.
Right.
That this is something that is an open-ended question, not just for the rest of this calendar year, but could go into next calendar year as well. And one story that didn't get much run, or soundbite that didn't get much run this week that I'd like to ask you about, was Nick Caserio, the GM of the Texans, being asked if the trade could be voided. And he essentially gave the answer of no backsies, to use the phrase that I think that many people are familiar with in the world. Are the Browns having escrow buyer's remorse at all on this?
I haven't heard the no backsies thing in a while, Rich. So thanks for bringing me back to
You're
the
welcome.
80s there.
You're welcome.
I honestly, I don't think, I haven't sensed any yet. Is it possible it happens? Yeah. But that's why I think it's so important, and we may never get the answer to this, right? But that's why I think how honest and forthright Deshaun has been with the NFL and how honest and forthright Deshaun has been with the Browns is so incredibly relevant here. It could, the way these contracts are written, it could void guarantees in his contract. I don't think that there's any possibility he gets traded back to the trade gets voided and he gets sent back to the Texans because. I think it was pretty clear there was a lot going on here, and it's not like the Browns went into this blindly and this is all of a sudden coming out of nowhere. They knew the risk. This isn't, and the fact that more information can come out, we all knew that back in March, So I don't think there's any chance that the trade gets voided, especially since the Texans have already used one of those draft picks. But could the guarantees get voided? Based on what I know about NFL contract language, if Deshaun wasn't forthright, with the Browns about, what could be coming, about what was out there, about what happened in any of these cases, well, then that exists. And then on the league level, if he wasn't forthright with the league, history tells us that the NFL comes down harder on guys who are not completely truthful with them. And the reason why is because the NFL lacks subpoena power. So if they want their investigations to have teeth, they have to create deterrence for people lying or misleading them, And so I think this thing for Deshaun personally gets considerably messier if he wasn't completely forthright and honest with the NFL and the Browns. And maybe the Browns won't come down on him because he's their guy now and everything else. But I certainly think the NFL will, and maybe both of them will.
Albert, you're the man. Have a great Father's Day weekend, and I hope you get whatever joy from the weekend that you deserve. And let's chat. Let's chat in July. Let's
absolutely. And happy Father's Day to you and everybody on the show. All right, Rich.
Thanks, brother. Greatly appreciate it. That's Albert Breer, everybody, right here on the Rich Eisen Show.